Hello everyone, this is Neha Tulsyan from Crescent Creation. Welcome to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video, I'm going to create some full panel shaker cards along with a bonus card for you. For my first set of shaker cards, I die cut lots of frames using the My Favorite Things A2 rectangle frames die. These die comes in a set of 4. They come all attached, but you can separate them and use them one at a time. But I use them just as is, and I die cut a lot of white frames to create my shaker well. So here I'm just going ahead and gluing 6 of these white frames together using some liquid glue to create my largest shaker well. Similarly, I'll go ahead and create rest of the 3 shaker wells, but I'm gonna do that off camera because I don't want to bore you with showing you how I glued all these frames together. Once all the frames are glued, now it's time to turn them into shaker cards. For the base of my shaker card, I have this beautiful pattern paper from the Summer Flowers paper pad from Not Too Shabby shop. And I'm gluing the very largest frame that I created on top of it. And here is when I realized that if I use all the frames together on one card, I won't be able to create a proper shaker card, because I won't have space to add in my shaker materials in between those frames. So I decided to skip the next frame and add the third frame instead. Now trimming off the excess background pattern paper using my scissors. Next I'm going to go ahead and add all the shaker materials. Today I chose to use these different colored seed beads from Crescent Creation store. These colors matched perfectly with the Summer Flowers paper pad, and that's the paper I'm going to use for the top of my frame. Once I'm done adding all the shaker materials, I'll go ahead and add glue on both the frames and adhere a clear sheet on top, making sure that it's glued from all the places and not any shaker material can escape out. I'll give it some time to dry before moving to the next step. And once I've left it to dry for a few seconds, I'll go ahead and apply glue on top of both the frames and then glue these pattern paper frames that I just die cut out of the pattern paper from Summer Flowers paper pad. I used 2 different floral pattern papers here, and once these are glued in place, my shaker well is almost complete. I'll go ahead and trim off the excess clear sheet that's hanging off the side. For the sentiment, I'm using this thanks sentiment from Lawn Fawn that I die cut using black cardstock, and now I'm applying some liquid glue behind it to glue it in place, and I'll glue it towards the bottom of my card. I could have used a little bigger sentiment here, but I really liked the look of this thin slim sentiment on this full panel shaker card, and it also gave a place for my butterfly to sit on. By the way, this butterfly is from the July box of the month kit, and if you want to see how I colored this butterfly, you can watch the video that's just coming on the top right of your screen. Finishing off this card by adding it to a A2 size white card base, and that's it, my first card is all done. For my second card, I didn't want my frames to go waste, so here I thought of using those 2 frames and create a second card out of them. So here I trimmed off a pattern paper from the same Summer Flowers paper pad to 4 by 5¼ inches, and now I'm gluing both the frames on top of it. Once both my frames are glued in place, I'll go ahead and add the shaker materials. I'm using the same seed beads as the last card. Once all the seed beads are in place, I'll go ahead and glue the clear sheet on top. Then I'll go ahead and glue the 2 floral frames on top. For the sentiment, I'm white heat embossing the sentiment used nailed it on black cardstock. Here I just prepped the black cardstock using anti-static powder tool, and now I'm going to go ahead and stamp the sentiment using some clear ink. This ink is clear and sticky that helps the embossing powder to stick on it. I'm using white embossing powder here. Just pour it on top of my stamped sentiment, and then I'll heat set it using my heat tool off camera. Now I'll go ahead and glue my card front onto a black cardstock, leaving a black border all around. And then I'll glue this to a white A2 size card base. Here I'm using my scissors to trim around the sentiment that I heat embossed earlier. Now I'll go ahead and glue the snail image and the sentiment on top of my card. Again, the snail and the sentiment is from the Insect Cuties stamp set from Not Too Shabby shop. And that finishes my second shaker card for today. My third card here is more of a bonus card. Since I had so many framed die cuts left out from my previous shaker cards, I didn't want them to go waste, so here I decided to put them into a card. So here I'm just gluing these rectangle frames using some liquid glue on top of an A2 size pattern paper. I glued 4 frames together and now I'm trimming off the excess that's hanging off the card. For the image, I decided to use one of the ephemeras from the ephemera pack from July box of the month. And here I'm just deciding which ephemera die cut to put on this card. Next, I decided to stamp the sentiment on a vellum piece. So here I'm white heat embossing my sentiment, and once I heat set it, I saw that my sentiment was kind of smudged. I could not read it clearly. So I thought maybe I made a mistake while I was stamping the sentiment, so I decided to stamp it again and reheat it. But still the sentiment was not very legible, so I decided to use my stays on ink and stamped the sentiment again on top of that white heat embossed sentiment, just offsetting it a little bit. And that just did the trick there. Now I have a beautiful black and white sentiment that reads beautiful as a butterfly. Next I glued the butterfly and trimmed off the excess using my scissors. Then I'm gluing this card front onto a black cardstock, leaving a black border all around. Lastly, gluing this to a white A2 size card base. And my third card is all done. For my fourth card, I created this beautiful honeycomb full panel shaker card. For this, I used the honeycomb background die from Honeybee Stamps and die cut out 6 of these honeycomb backgrounds using white cardstock. And now I'm just gluing these 6 backgrounds together using some liquid glue. This is what will create my shaker well. Once all these 6 frames are glued together, I'll go ahead and glue this on top of a yellow cardstock. Now I'll go ahead and start pouring my shaker materials into the shaker well. You can choose to add the shaker materials in all of these hexagon boxes, or you can just leave few of them empty. That's totally up to you, and both will add in a very beautiful effect. For my today's card, I decided to add shaker materials in all these hexagon boxes. I used black and mustard colored seed beads here, and I also decided to use vellum instead of clear sheet for closing my shaker well. So here I used my guillotine trimmer to trim off the vellum to size, and now I'm just gluing it in place using some liquid glue. Once that's done, I'll trim off the excess vellum and the cardstock that's hanging off the sides. And to give this shaker a finished look from top, I die cut this honeycomb pattern from a lighter yellow cardstock and glued that on top. For the sentiment, I'm using the same thanks die cut from Lawn Fawn that I die cut using black cardstock, and I glued it in place using some liquid glue. Now going ahead and gluing these cute bee ephemera die cuts from the July box of the month kit. And lastly, I'll go ahead and glue this to a white note card. To finish off this card, I also added some rhinestones from Gina Marie Designs, which was included in the July box of the month kit. If you haven't yet subscribed to the box of the month from Not Too Shabby shop, you should do it. You get some really cute products every month and they get sold out pretty fast. Few of the products that are sold separately are still available, and have linked them all in the description box below. So these were my 3 shaker cards for today, along with a bonus card. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Don't forget to hit that notification bell to get notified every time I upload a new video. Here are a few more videos that you might like to watch. Thank you for visiting. Have a nice day.